And here we go. It's Drop the Mic on a Friday. Mike Eccleston here live once again on the Legends Podcast Network on Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, a network that's growing more and more each day, and I'm lucky enough to be part of. Thank you to all who are listening and all those in the chat room. I have a lot on my plate today, so let's have at it. It's about damn time. Noah Syndergaard looking like the ace caliber pitcher that he can be. There's something I feel the need to explain to fans, and I say this a lot. When fans hear others call players overrated, I feel like a lot of people aren't quite sure what that word means exactly. Overrated doesn't mean a guy is terrible. It does not mean that he isn't good. It means that people blow up or hype up that particular player as something that he has not yet proven to be. Whether it's because their stuff is so incredible or their potential ceiling is so high, doesn't matter. Noah has been seen as a larger-than-life figure who, can hit triple digits on the gun on a consistent basis, which is pretty remarkable, by the way. He can hit 100 miles an hour into like the 6th or 7th inning. And drops Thor's hammer, the curveball and the slider. This is no longer a 22-year-old kid trying to get his feet wet who is showing signs of being a stud. For him, it's time to show that he can be a Cy Young caliber arm. Because I know he can be that kind of guy. To me, Noah Syndergaard has been overrated because I know that this is the kind of pitcher he can be. He can be a dominant one. He can be a top of the rotation because the thing is I've always said that there's a difference between being an ace and being a team's ace. You can be at the top of someone's rotation or a team's rotation if you're the White Sox, you don't have an ace. They just have a guy who, is their best pitcher, so they put him at the top of the rotation. An ace, there aren't too many teams who have them, but Noah Syndergaard is the kind of guy whose stuff is good, more than good enough, to be an ace, to be a Cy Young contender on a year-in and year-out basis. He has that kind of potential. In a start, when the Mets needed it desperately yesterday, in danger of dropping a 4-game series at home to the Cincinnati Reds, whose offense, really hasn't been able to score runs at all, which I'm going to be talking about a little later. When you're in danger of dropping a 4-game set, he stepped up. He did what an ace does. You stop the bleeding. Stop the bleeding right where you are. The Mets offense has started to flounder a little bit. That's the kind of guy you want to see on a more consistent basis. You want to see a complete game shutout. 4 hits, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. His command was there. Dominant mound presence was there. He had gotten off to such a rough start that his earned run average after this start dropped to 5.02. Last time I checked, that ain't good either. Maybe this is the start of a run for Noah. the jump start that he needed. It really is funny how when the Mets offense is one of the best in the sport, their pitching stinks. And when their pitching starts to step up again, they can't score a run. Like this, kind of brings you back to last year with DeGrom's problem. I mean, all year, where they couldn't score a run for him. They just can't seem to put it all together. Noah was also responsible for the only run scored in yesterday's game. Yes, he hit a bomb, an absolute bomb to left field. That's the 4th home run by a Mets pitcher this season. To put it into this perspective, their pitchers hit 4 total last season. So they've gotten off to a good start with the bat. Like, these guys aren't typical pitchers when it comes to being at the plate. They can hit. They know what they're doing up there. Noah, as strong as he is, Jacob deGrom was a shortstop in college. He wasn't even drafted to be a pitcher. These guys can hit. Sticking to the subject of ace caliber pitchers, is it time to acknowledge that Minnesota Twins starter Jose Berrios is coming? He showed signs early last year and had a good season. And once again is looking sharp as a tack. Like, Berrios is just getting better. I love watching this kid because he seems to know when to pitch to contact. I say that because a lot of starting pitchers with great stuff try just, overpowering and striking everyone out. A lot of guys that, have that kind of stuff, they just want to blow people away. They want to blow every hitter away. And when you do that, when you have that kind of mindset, your pitch count rises. You end up throwing too many pitches and end up throwing, 105 pitches in, 5 innings. Foul balls become more of a problem. Longer counts. 3 ball counts. I feel like every time Berrios starts a game, he winds up going 7 innings. He's the typical 7 innings, 1 or 2 earned runs, 6 or 7 strikeouts per outing kind of guy. It's methodical. It's a breath of fresh air. He works quickly. He stays away from long innings. And when he gets into trouble, he seems to limit the damage. It's big for not only that game and for the team in general, but it also helps keep the bullpen fresh. Starting pitchers, people like talking about how bad bullpens are. But the thing is that starting pitchers and the bullpen go hand in hand. Now, if the starting pitcher is going 7 innings and the bullpen is just blowing it every game, I get, people talking about how that bullpen's bad. But if your starting pitchers aren't going far into games, and the same guys are being trotted out there from the bullpen, your bullpen is going to struggle. That's just, when you have a starting pitcher like Berrios who can go far into games and keep your team in the game every time out, that's going to help everybody. Even though it was only a couple times, the 24-year-old led the league in complete games last season. Yesterday, I figured it was going to be a tough outing for Berrios, going against a hot Astros lineup. And then Alex Bregman hit a solo home run in the first inning. But like the composed top pitcher he's turning into, he spun a 7-inning gem. 7 hits, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, 0 walks. It's not an easy thing to do, by the way, especially against Houston. This kid he shies away from nobody. The Twins aren't exactly a team that seems to grab much attention, but people need to start paying attention to both the Twins and Berrios. Because the Twins are doing what everybody was been kind of hoping that another one of the teams in the American League Central would do. They look like they can actually somewhat give, Cleveland some sort of, competition, because the American League Central has been one of the worst divisions, ever. Minnesota actually looks legit. I don't know if that is going to continue, but they do have potential there. And Jose Berrios is becoming a star. Fans need to start taking notice of that. Another youngster that the mainstream doesn't talk about quite enough staying in that division in the American League Central because of where he plays in Kansas City, Adalberto Mondesi. This kid is special. People were afraid that he might strike out too often, or his on-base percentage isn't as high as they would like for it to be. But my God, can he play? He's a hitter. He has some pop. He's fast. He has 27 RBIs in 31 games this season. Add 10 stolen bases and 5 triples in there, which both lead the league. Mondesi is an electric, superb athlete. Oh, and by the way, he's only committed 1 error this season from the shortstop position. He's hitting .286. I'm telling you, guys like him and Victor Robles with the Washington Nationals are going to remind people just how important speed is in this game. Everybody wants to talk about the power hitters because that's, the big deal in this league now. The speedster is kind of dying a little bit, or that's what people have considered it. But speed's still a big deal in the game of baseball. Have a guy who can turn a double into a triple, a long single into a double, can steal bases. It's a big deal. When you're that fast, you have to be able to hit for at least some power. But when you're that fast, it adds so much to your value to your team. The Colorado Rockies are back after their god-awful start to this season. I blame Daniel Murphy coming back from his injury. Because ever since then, he came back and all of a sudden the team got their powers back. Nolan Arenado is heating up. 3 home runs and 6 RBIs in his last 2 games in Milwaukee. He hadn't hit a home run for the first 2 weeks of the season, maybe longer. All of a sudden, now he has 9. Safe to say that he's back. Charlie Blackmon may not necessarily be back yet, but he's starting to come back. We've yet to really see the power that's expected from him. Oh, and by the way, can anybody tell me what exactly John Gray is? Is John Gray a stud? Or is he just some, decent starting pitcher? Because, looking at last year, it was the tale of 2 seasons. He started off horrifically and actually got sent to the minors. But then when he came back from the minors, he was awesome. He was tremendous. He was exactly what the Rockies were hoping for. He has that kind of, strikeout stuff. That's what everybody was talking about when John Gray, I just don't he's such a confusing pitcher to me. But anyway, after a 4-12 start, the Rockies are now 15-17. It's another reason why bad starts for good teams aren't necessarily a big deal. It all usually comes back around. People tend to overreact in April. That's just the way baseball fans are. The first 2 or 3 weeks of the season sometimes Jose Ramirez is still struggling, but that's a whole nother story. He seems to, he can't get out of his own way right now. Still hitting 180. Round 2 of the Washington Nationals Philadelphia Phillies rivalry starts tonight. It's not as interesting in Philadelphia because Bryce Harper will not be booed there. Both Harper and Jeremy Hellickson will be going up against their former teams. Maybe Harper wakes up seeing his former team because obviously the biggest signing in the major leagues this offseason is hitting just .231 to start off this season. To me, the Nationals have started off the way I expected them to. I believe they are a young, talented team who has a bright future. Obviously, guys like Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Victor Robles. Anthony Rendon is a guy who's overlooked. He's a stud. But I don't believe them to be a serious contender for this season, especially considering the division they're in. I view them as the 4th best team in the National League East. That hasn't changed. I think that the Phillies, Mets, and Braves are all, I'm going to say more well-equipped. More experienced, I guess, if you want to say that. I think that they're more solid teams. The Nationals have a very bright future, and I think that they're going to be winning that division in a couple of years. The thing that has surprised me, though, is the start that Max Scherzer has gotten off to. ERA of over 4. This is a guy who, it's kind of like watching Corey Kluber struggle, where those two guys have been so great every single year for quite a while now. Max Scherzer and Corey Kluber have been like the glue. They've been very consistently great starting pitchers. Seeing Max Scherzer struggle is odd. He is human, after all. I mean, aces in general have struggled to start off this year. Obviously, you got Chris Sale and Jacob deGrom who struggled. Corey Kluber, who just recently he just got hurt. Oh, and if you're a fan of the Cincinnati Reds, it is a big day for you and for your franchise. Top prospect Nick Senzel is making his major league debut. Finally. I feel like I've been hearing about him for years. Now, they've been trying to figure out for a while now where if he's going to come up, where he's going to play. Is he going to play third base, second base? Are they going to, move him to the outfield? They're officially moving him to center field. He's going to be their everyday center fielder, moving Scott Schebler to the bench. He'll be, but either way, this has been long awaited. His bat has been ready for the show. It was just trying to get him comfortable in center field that was taking a while. Coming back from injuries too. That has hampered him. I, for one, am looking forward to this. Kid hit over 300 at every level. This is also big for a Reds team who can't take watching Schebler take the field every day any longer. But their bats have really struggled to start off this season. Jesse Winker hitting for a .224 average. Eugenio Suarez, the same. Their big acquisition, Yasiel Puig, hitting .178. Schebler at just .127. Jose Peraza at .200. Joey Votto at just .232 with 3 home runs and 5 RBIs. This was not what Cincinnati Reds fans were expecting at the beginning of this season. They were expecting a lot more from these guys as a collective group. And this kid Senzel's arrival could be just what the doctor ordered in Cincinnati. He's going to be hitting, they're throwing him right into the fire. And I don't really blame him. I don't really blame the Reds. They're going to hit him second tonight in his debut. Right in between Jesse Winker and Joey Votto. Hopefully this can jumpstart the Reds. Moving over to the NBA, I cannot say enough about Kawhi Leonard. And I get it, they lost yesterday. They're down 2-1. But just watching him play, whether it's his game, his even keel self, people knock him about his blank sheet of paper-like personality. But to me, his lack of emotion and personality helps him on the floor. This guy isn't all over social media. His number one goal is to get better on the court. Period. No outside stuff. Nothing going on. He's not a distraction. He's not nuts. The pressure doesn't seem to get to him. either way. Sometimes you see guys whose emotions are, they're getting to that. Like you look at Russell Westbrook. I feel like I get it that people love his motor and the way his mind moves. And like he's always going at, 150 miles an hour. But that tends to lead to bad shot taking, mistakes, bad passes, bad decision making. Kawhi Leonard just doesn't seem to, nothing bothers him. He just plays great defense, hits jumpers, posts up and scores the ball. He takes his ball and goes home. He's not a media darling. He's not talking constantly about everyone else, the referees, or himself. He's just there, and he balls out. Whether the Raptors win or lose this series, this is the guy come free agent time that I would want to sign as an NBA team. I know there's going to be a lot of attention on the free agent period where they're going to have obviously Kevin Durant and, Kyrie Irving and Jimmy Butler and obviously Kawhi Leonard. This is the guy. This is a guy that I would absolutely love to have because of the way he plays on both ends of the floor. And he's just getting better. Kawhi Leonard created himself. He wasn't a very good jump shooter when he came into the NBA. He worked on that, and he got a lot better. He became he was always a physical defensive player, but watching a guy go from what he was to start off to becoming a great scorer in the NBA is impressive to me. Leonard also seems to get better come postseason time. 2014 Finals MVP. And he's killing it in this year's playoffs. Even in last night's loss, he scored 33 points. I believe he's just outstarred right now. Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, add J.J. Redick, one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time. And the Sixers have one of the best starting fives in the NBA. Pascal Siakam is on his way. He's probably going to win Most Improved Player. And I like Kyle Lowry, but these guys aren't stars. There's even talk about whether or not Kyle Lowry is holding this Raptors team back. They might have a point. Toronto may be deeper than Philadelphia, but the star power in the starting lineup seems to be a little too strong on the Sixers side. Simple as that. Joel Embiid, a healthy Joel Embiid is... I don't know how you stop that, to be honest with you. 33 points, 10 rebounds. He's a big guy. He's a big freak of nature who can dominate down low. It takes at least 2 or 3 guys to stop him. And he can shoot the ball. He's not a great shooter, but he can shoot the ball. He hit a few threes yesterday, too. People also don't believe in the Raptors. And understandably so. Because it feels like we've heard this story about how good they are every year. Every year, it's the Raptors. They're better this year. They're better. They're gonna be a top team. They were a top team. Look at what they did in the regular season. They're a great team. It's the same story. I would be surprised if Kawhi Leonard is back with the Raptors next year. And which is going to leave the Raptors with pretty much nothing. Warriors, Rockets. Do the Rockets have a chance down 0-2? I want to say yes. I want to. I was hoping that, last year when, they were up 3-2, but then lost Chris Paul due to injury and wound up losing in 7 to Golden State would be like, okay, now this is going to be their year. But I can't say yes. I think the series is over. Now, can they make it a series? Now, they would have to beat the Warriors 4 out of the next 5 games, which would be another level of impressive, considering the dominance that Golden State has put forth for the last few years. Steph Curry will play tomorrow. Kevin Durant has just been balling out. He's proving that he's the best player on the planet right now. Like, to me, as much as I love Kawhi Leonard, as much as, LeBron James is still in the NBA, Giannis is becoming a top player. There are some people who believe that he's the best player in the game right now. I still don't think his shot is good enough. Kevin Durant is the entire package. And I think he's proving that to people. Both games 1 and 2, have been close. I just feel like Houston needed to steal one of these games at the Oracle in order to beat them in this series. Now you have to win both of these home games and take one of the games at Golden State. I just don't see that happening. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I would like to see the Rockets go to the finals. I would like to see a different team because I'm expecting the Warriors are going to win it again. I'm just hoping that because the Rockets can compete with the Warriors, which is something that we haven't really seen from anyone else. A team that can compete with the Warriors on a game-to-game basis. I mean, other teams can steal a game or two, but you really don't have any kind of faith that they're going to actually go in and beat them 4 times. This was the team. The Houston Rockets had a shot because of the system they play, because of how great James Harden has, become, and because Chris Paul. And the Rockets even play good defense, which is something that I never thought I would say about a Mike D'Antoni and James Harden-led team. Never thought I would say that. But they're actually playing good defense. They have been for the last couple of years. Now, the Blazers-Nuggets series shifts over to Portland, Oregon. I think the questions regarding whether or not Damian Lillard has help have been answered. Because that kind of bothers me, even now. I was at a bar the other day, and somebody that I was sitting next to was like, oh, Dame Lillard should be the MVP. He has no help. I'm like, you're just not paying attention to the Blazers. That entire team is clicking right now. From CJ McCollum to Al-Farouq Aminu to Mo Harkless to Enes Kanter, who I continue to bring up as a huge pickup. He was, even bigger after the Nurkic injury, but he was a big pickup for that team, for that front court. To Zach Collins, who's stepping up, the kid out of Gonzaga. Now, he's not a kid who's going to be putting up 20 to 30 points. Well, he also doesn't play the minutes, too. But when he's out there, you're going to see him. He needs to bulk up, by the way. That's really his only issue. He's a great athlete. He can shoot. He can rebound. He can block shots. To me, he's just not big enough to hang with guys like Nikola Jokic. I saw him guarding Jokic the other day, and I was like, there's no way. Just because Jokic is so much bigger than him. Dame is a straight-up game changer, and I do believe that he is an MVP caliber player. Don't get me wrong. I feel like Lillard is one of my favorite players in the NBA. Dame Lillard is an MVP caliber player. But the Blazers do have a good team. They've just been overlooked. I think this series goes at least 6. Game 2 got a little chippy after Jokic pushed Kanter into Torrey Craig, who had broken his nose earlier in that same game. By the way, I'm just going to bring up the fact that is awesome, that Torrey Craig, I'm thinking of a guy who could break his nose. This is such a hockey thing. A guy breaks his nose early in a playoff game and finds a way to come back later on in the game. That's crazy. That's the kind of grit you want to see from a teammate. You don't really see that in the game anymore. You see guys that break something, they're done. They're done for weeks. He broke his nose and came back into the game. Obviously, he took exception to, he thought that Kanter bumped him, and there was a little bit of a scrum. You like seeing a little bit of drama added to a series like this. This series is just getting started, too. It should be a fun one. Oh, and about the Celtics-Bucks series, Jason Tatum needs to step up for Boston. The second-year player out of Duke who stepped up to become a star. I wouldn't call him a star, but he looked like a star. He looked like he was going to be a star last year. Last year's playoffs is when Jason Tatum was like, I arrived. He's scored a grand total of 9 points in 2 games and went just 2 for 10 in game 2. To me, that's unacceptable for a kid who showed that he can be a star in the series of this magnitude, especially when they're the underdog. They need all hands on deck in order to beat a team like Milwaukee, who's big, they're long, they can shoot, they have size, they can defend, they're well coached, they do everything right. The Bucks do everything that a winning team should do. And they have Giannis. This series is knotted up at 1, and the Bucks appear to be firing on all cylinders after looking a little lost game 1. We all know about the Greek Freak, like I just mentioned, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But Chris Middleton is the man as well. People don't talk about Chris Middleton enough. The Bucks, like I said, have the size and the shooters. They defend well. Boston is deep. They're well coached. And they have their closer in Kyrie Irving. They have the horses to pull this off. But Tatum needs to step up in order for this to happen. As much as I love, the Celtics coming into the season they were supposed to be the team to beat, and they were a little bit underwhelming this season. So for them to be the 5 seed this year was surprising in itself. And for them to be underdogs in come playoff time is a little bit surprising too. But they have a shot to mend that because of how deep and talented they are, and because they have a guy in Kyrie Irving who can close out games. Because you see a lot of teams that just they struggle to close out games because they don't have a true top closer. Boston has that. The Cardinals and Cubs game is going on right now as we speak. Got Jack Flaherty going against Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks has pitched a great game so far. The game's in the bottom of the 5th. The Cubs are up 3-0. Hendricks has given up just 1 hit. Colton Wong has the only hit. That'll about do it for me. I'd just like to thank everybody who's listening, everybody in the chat room. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And stay good looking.